In 1502, Cesare Borgia sat across from a man who wanted something from him, a diplomat, a negotiator. The man had practiced his speech for weeks. He had logic. He had leverage. He had every reason to believe he would walk away with what he came for. Borgia said almost nothing. He did not argue. He did not counteroffer. He simply watched. And the diplomat, this intelligent, well-spoken man, began talking faster, filling the silence, offering concessions no one had even requested. By the end of the meeting, the diplomat had surrendered more than he intended to negotiate, and Borgia had not even moved a muscle. That diplomat later wrote about the encounter. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli, and what he learned in that room changed how he understood power forever. There is a force more convincing than any argument, more attractive than any charm, and more crushing than any threat. And you are doing the exact opposite of it every single day. I am going to show you 5 psychological mechanisms that make a person quietly powerful. But the 5th one, the one that connects them all, is the one almost nobody speaks about. And it will reshape how you see every relationship, every negotiation, and every moment of your life. Here is the first idea, the structure of desire. There is a rule that governs every human interaction, and yet almost no one follows it. The person who wants less controls more. Not the person with more money. Not the person with the stronger argument. Not even the person with higher status. The person who can sit at the table and truly not need the result. That person bends gravity. Robert Cialdini explained this in his research on scarcity. He discovered that the perceived value of anything, a product, a person, an opportunity, increases the moment it becomes harder to obtain. But here is the part most people overlook. Scarcity does not only apply to objects, it applies to you, your attention, your approval, your emotional presence. When you chase someone, when you text first every time, when you over-explain your value, when you ask, "Are we okay?" After every small disagreement, you are flooding the market with yourself. You are making your presence common, and common things are easily replaced. Think about this. In the courts of Renaissance Italy, the advisors who survived were not always the most talented. They were the ones who understood that closeness was a currency. They did not crowd the prince. They positioned themselves at a distance that made the prince seek them out. They understood that a man who is always available is a man who is rarely valued. There was a courtier in the court of Ludovico Sforza, a gifted musician and a capable strategist who made one fatal mistake. He was always present, every feast, every council, every hunt. He volunteered for every duty, he praised every decision. Within 2 years, Sforza could barely remember his name. He had become part of the furniture. Meanwhile, another man, far less talented, appeared only when called. He spoke only when the room was stuck. He left before anyone grew tired of him. Sforza became fascinated with him, began consulting him privately, even granted him land. The difference was not talent, it was dosage. You become irreplaceable not by doing more but by making what you do feel rare. And this applies everywhere. In romance, the partner who pulls back slightly after giving warmth creates a deep craving in the other person. Not through manipulation, but through natural rhythm. Tension, release. Tension again, the heartbeat of attraction. In business, the consultant who says, "I am not sure I am the right fit for this," will often be hired faster than the one who sends 14 follow-up emails, because the first one has communicated something primal. "I do not need you," and that sentence, even when unspoken, is one of the most attractive things a human being can project. Mark Manson calls this non-neediness. He argues that it is the single most important trait in any social dynamic. Not confidence, not charisma, non-neediness. Because confidence can be copied, charisma can be performed. But the absence of desperation cannot be faked for long. It radiates from a place that is either full or empty, and people feel the difference. So here is the hard question. What are you begging for right now? Whose approval have you been chasing so intensely that you have forgotten what it feels like to stand firmly on your own ground? Because that chase, that invisible leaning forward, is the very thing pushing away what you want. Stop reaching and watch what begins to reach back. The second idea is deliberate incompleteness. There is a reason unfinished paintings often sell for more at auction than completed ones. There is a reason a song that stops before the final chorus stays in your mind longer than one that ends cleanly. There is a reason a half-smile feels more mysterious and more powerful than a full grin. The human brain is wired to complete patterns. When something is left open, unresolved, partially revealed, your mind cannot release it. It returns to it again and again. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect, but Machiavelli understood it centuries before it had a label. Borgia never revealed his entire plan to anyone, not his generals, not his father, not even his closest advisor. He gave each person one piece, enough to act on, never enough to see the whole board. And this created something extraordinary. It made every person around him feel that they were close to understanding him, but never quite there. That gap, the space between what people know about you and what they suspect, is where your power lives. Most people do the opposite. They overshare. They narrate every move. They explain their reasoning before anyone even asks. They believe transparency always builds trust. And in some situations, it does. But in the dynamics of power and attraction, too much transparency can become surrender. When you tell someone everything about your plans, your feelings, your fears, you hand them a complete map of your inner world. They know where your treasure is buried. They know where your walls are weak. And whether they use that knowledge against you or not, you have removed the one thing that made you compelling, the unknown. Robert Greene writes about this in The Art of Seduction. He explains that mystery is the foundation of attraction. Not beauty, not wealth, not intelligence. Mystery. Because beauty fades. Wealth can be matched. Intelligence can be challenged. But a person who cannot be fully read, fully categorized, fully understood, that person stays in the mind of others. Think about the people who fascinated you most in your life. Were they the ones who told you everything in the first conversation? Or were they the ones who left you with questions? Who said something that did not fully add up? Who smiled at an unexpected moment or remained silent when everyone expected them to speak? You were drawn to the gap. Mystery is not dishonesty. It is editing. It is choosing what to reveal and when. It is the discipline of leaving the last page unfinished, so the reader has no choice but to continue. A man who tells you he is powerful is forgettable. A man who says little yet commands the room is unforgettable, because your mind has been given a puzzle it cannot solve, and unsolved puzzles create obsession. The third idea is posture. In the animal world, there is something called appeasement signaling. When a weaker animal meets a dominant one, it lowers its body, drops its head, exposes its belly. It is saying without words, I am not a threat. Please do not hurt me. Humans do the same thing, but with language. I am sorry to bother you. I know you are busy. I completely understand if you cannot. Just checking in again. Every one of these sentences can become a verbal bow. Everyone can signal that you are placing yourself below the other person. And here is the painful truth. It sometimes works in the short term. People may respond. They may give you a small piece of what you asked for. But they will not respect you, and they will not see you as equal. Epictetus was born a slave. He had no wealth, no title, no formal power. Yet some of the most powerful men in Rome sought his guidance. Why? because he never asked them for anything. He never positioned himself beneath anyone, not out of pride, but out of inner sufficiency. His posture communicated something simple and strong. I have everything I need within this mind. You may join me or you may walk away. I will not change my orbit for you. That complete self-containment was more powerful than any senator's fortune. Machiavelli observed that the princes who begged for alliances, who sent desperate letters, who offered concessions before they were requested, were the first to fall, because begging sends one message above all else: I cannot survive without you. And the moment someone believes you cannot survive without them, they control you. When you beg, you are not only asking, you are broadcasting your own lack. You are saying to the world, I am incomplete without this. And the world often responds by withholding the very thing you crave. This is not cruelty. It is human nature. Desperation repels. Self-sufficiency attracts. So, how do you stop begging when you truly want something? You shift the internal frame. You do not need their approval. You would appreciate it. You do not need the job. You are deciding whether it deserves your time. You do not need the relationship. You are evaluating whether this person earns access to your life. The change is small in words but huge in impact. When you stop needing, you stop leaking power. And when you stop leaking power, people begin to feel a gravity around you they cannot explain. They may call it confidence. They may call it charisma. But it is simply the posture of someone who has stopped asking the world for permission to exist. The fourth idea is calculated friction. In 1959, researchers Elliot Aronson and Judson Mills conducted an experiment. They divided volunteers into two paths to join the same group. One path was simple: fill out a form, attend once, you are in. The other path was difficult, awkward tasks, strict screening, rejection at multiple stages. The result was surprising to many. The people who struggled to gain entry valued the group far more than those who walked in easily. Same group, same people, same experience, but the ones who worked for it treated it as precious. This is known as the effort justification effect. When you make yourself too easy to access, when you answer every call immediately, when you say yes before they finish asking, when you rearrange your entire life for someone who would not rearrange a single hour for you, you remove the friction that creates value. You become convenient. And convenience is quickly taken for granted. Friction is not cruelty. It is structure. It is boundaries. It is saying, my time has weight. My attention has cost. My presence is not unlimited. When someone has to invest effort to access you, they value you more. When they must wait, adjust, or prove consistency, they attach meaning to the connection. Look at elite universities. Look at exclusive clubs. Look at luxury brands. They do not apologize for being selective. They do not beg customers to apply. They create standards, and those standards increase desire. The same principle applies to you. If you are always available, always agreeable, always accommodating, you may be liked, but you will rarely be respected. Respect grows where there is structure. Attraction grows where there is tension. Value grows where there is. When you begin to introduce healthy friction into your life, something shifts. Some people will disappear. They were only there because you were easy. Others will step up. They will invest more. They will treat your time and energy with care. And that is when you begin to understand the deeper pattern behind all of this. Power is not loud. It is not aggressive. It is not desperate. It is quiet. It is controlled. It is selective. It knows when to speak and when to stay silent. It knows when to lean in and when to lean back. It knows when to reveal and when to withhold. The final mechanism ties everything together. It is internal independence, the ability to be complete within yourself before you step into any room. When you are internally full, you do not chase. When you are internally secure, you do not overshare. When you are internally grounded, you do not beg. When you are internally disciplined, you do not make yourself too easy. And people feel this immediately. They may not understand it logically, they may not be able to explain it, but they sense it. They sense that you are not there to extract something. You are there because you choose to be. That is the quiet force Machiavelli witnessed in 1502. That is the gravity Borgia carried without speaking. And that is the power available to you, not through manipulation, not through tricks, but through restraint, self-control, and inner sufficiency. The moment you stop trying to force outcomes, outcomes begin to move toward you. The moment you stop demanding validation, validation becomes optional. The moment you stop proving your worth becomes assumed. And that shift, subtle but profound, changes every relationship, every negotiation, and every room you walk into for the rest of your life.